today we have an amazing guest, and I'm afraid to say it's Damian from Revry. He is a co-founder of Revry Queer TV. If you have not found this channel, you absolutely have to, because they have an amazing slate of movies and series to watch to while your days away while you're sitting in quarantine. So we also have Jordan Aquino here, my co-host. She is going to be joining us to talk to Damian about everything from how he started and got inspired as an actor to now being the head of his network. So thank you for joining us today, Damian. We
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having me, Stephanie. Yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm so excited to see you guys are doing so well.
Thanks. We appreciate it. So let's start with one simple question. How have you been surviving during quarantine?
Lots of cannabis. That's how I answer that question anytime I'm asked. No, I mean, outside of that, I'm a very big proprietor of cannabis, and obviously I've seen the amazing effects that it's had on so many people in so many different ways. But I think the biggest thing through quarantine that, how we've been surviving is, outside of taking our dogs for a walk and trying to do some kind of physical activity, is we've been going, myself and my partner in the business and in life, Christopher Rodriguez, we actually use our office when no one else does. So we're still going to our physical office space, and it's been great because we've got our little 1,200 square feet home, and then we get to come to this 3,500 square feet office where there's no one here but us and our dogs.
Uh-huh.
So we just run around the office all day long and throw I've got bones and balls to the dog. So it's been really fun to have an empty office to work from for almost a year now, which is
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
where's your office located? What part of town?
So we're in Glendale,
Oh, okay.
right in the valley here in Los Angeles. I'm literally catty corner to the Superior Court, City Hall, and then across the street is the police station. So we got really lucky, and we have an amazing landlord who gave us rent relief for majority of the time that COVID's been going on.
Oh, wow.
And we have kind of an entire little floor of a small building, a really small building here on the corner. And our neighbors, bless their heart, they're they are a DUI class, so they only operate at night. But it's the best relationship because it's only a 2-story building. So it's we're here during the day, they're here at night. We never step on each other's toes. And they're wonderful neighbors and really great folks to be, partnered with.
Awesome. I remember us doing live stream, 12 years ago or something, from your other office on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, on Sunset when Dion and I had that.
Oh, right. Sunset. Right.
Yeah, that's so crazy. That's so
yeah.
long. Yeah.
We were, in fact, one of the ones, Mark Gant, Jesse Warren, myself, and I forget who else was, we were doing a 4-panel thing, live streaming. That was crazy times when the internet sucked, and now it's wonderful and makes it easy for what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Which back then it wasn't the greatest. It was fun, but it was
tricky. It was tricky. Very tricky. Funny because that spot is now a coffee shop. They actually turned it into a coffee shop, and I think on the other side is a pawn shop. It's so weird. That building is completely different than what it used to be over a decade ago. So yeah, it's crazy. Over 10 years now, we've known each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to flip over to Jordan because I know she's got those 1,000 questions waiting.
Oh, yes. Thousands. Prepare. Get ready. Okay. So you wear many hats. You've had an incredible career. Can you talk about the evolution of your career and what inspired you to become the head of a network, starting your network, a writer, a producer, an actor, all of it? Can you talk a little bit about all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think, very much like, Stephanie and JD, we always say we're the OG digital crowd because we were all there first. we're all very much entrepreneurs, and we've been, or mediapreneurs, had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit for so long. And I've worked with some really wonderful people over the years where, you had a lot of failures and a lot of no's, and that's your school, really. That's the thing that teaches you to get to the point where you create something where everywhere you go, it's a yes. And I feel like that's finally come to fruition with starting Revry. Revry started in my living room in Echo Park, as every good startup starts in someone's living room or dining room or kitchen table. And it came out of the inspiration from Apple TV. I'm a self-proclaimed Apple file. I love all the Apple products. I have to have them. They're like my newest toy anytime something new comes out. They're just so much fun to play with. And the Apple TV was part of that. And I remember having the very first one, the first generation Apple TV, for so long. And then finally, Apple in 2015 did a massive rehaul to the hardware and to the software. And specifically with the hardware, they made it bigger. They made it 4K. They created, ways where you could capture and record, much like TiVo, was the old school TiVo box, who we work with now. Revry is actually on as a network on TiVo right now. And they, more importantly, created this tvOS operating system, which allowed for developers to create their own unique experiences for the living room set at home. And so I bought the newest one, the 4th gen, when it came out, with the black remote in 2015. And, it comes pre-installed like your iPhone does when you come, take it out of your manufacturer box, with just like the 5 basic, apps that Apple provides you with. And the first one being the App Store. So I searched the Apple TV App Store for LGBTQ, and nothing popped up. There was actually no apps ever created. We were the first to market and first ever LGBTQ app for Apple TV, 4th gen and higher. And then eventually we iterated to all the other OTT, over the top television kind of devices, and now CTV, connected TV, aggregators. If you had asked me, though, from being an actor to being in, an entrepreneur to being in technology and then starting our own network, was this ever something that was planned, or I had any idea that this would be my career path? Hell no. I had no clue. It was almost like a natural progression over time. And it's also one of the things where you have to really be, I think, open to pivoting and creating new possibilities for yourself and your career that maybe you had not anticipated when you were 22 years old. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be 40. So this is a long time coming. What?
You look amazing. You don't.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm like literally in the midst of like growing out my beard for my 40th. I'm like trying to embrace my inner bear. That's a term in the gay community. But anyways, but yes. So for us, we, what I think the biggest takeaway for me was that we wanted to create something that no one else had created, and also make sure that it was something for the entire community. And so it wasn't just about me, a white cisgender gay man, which, typically LGBTQ media had only been focused on one, kind of subsector of our community for creating content for that. But it's really about, all gender expressions, all walks of life, all ethnicities, races, even languages. Now we're really expanding out into Spanish language, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. A lot of new content that's coming our way is not in English necessarily. And we're inspired by that. We're inspired by it in a lot of ways because it creates representation and tells a story in a part of the world for a part of the community that maybe has not really had a platform before. And that's what Revry is about. It's really creating a platform that is visibly, for the entire community.
That's amazing. What's been the most rewarding part of creating the first LGBTQ network? I mean, you're a pioneer. It's amazing.
I wouldn't call myself a pioneer, but yeah, but thank you though. It's funny. It's like I'm not used to being called a pioneer just yet. But I think the thing that keeps me going are the messages that we get from queer people all over the world who have not seen a transgender, music artist, or have not seen a lesbian comedy from Bangalore, or has not seen, a gay Brazilian short film. Like it's so funny to, we're very obviously live in Los Angeles, and I'm from Toronto, originally from Canada, live in these bubbles, these very liberal bubbles. We don't know what life is really like outside of that unless we just go visit. And even then, you're just getting a taste. You're not really experiencing like what it is to be fully immersed in a red state in the middle of nowhere, or, like Kansas, let's say, or Oklahoma. Right. For that queer kid in high school who doesn't have any outlet for representation outside of like social media, TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, and then what little titles that you find on Amazon and Hulu and Netflix, which typically are the same. We actually did a cross study of a lot of the films under LGBTQ for Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, and there are a lot of the same big studio titles. They all had Brokeback Mountain, ironically, right? So it doesn't really give a full depiction of what the real community walks, talks, and breathes and looks like. So we've had letters come to us from Saudi Arabia, right after we launched. I had a queer kid reach out to me saying, I'm Muslim. I didn't know there was anyone else like out there in the world. I read the Macworld article about your network, downloaded the app and started watching. He named a few titles, and how much it meant to him to see that representation. And then we've had, I had an opportunity of speaking in Mumbai at Kashish, which is the LGBTQ film festival in India, like one of the only ones really, and it was in its 10th year anniversary, and this was June 2019. We had this one title called The Other Love Story, which was a Hindi, half English, half Hindi lesbian drama series that was shot in Bangalore, and we picked it up from a really talented British producer in London. And these lesbian women came up to me and they wanted to take their photo with me, like I was like some celebrity, and I'm like, I'm like, how great to meet you. What else can we do? Or like, do you have any other work that we can license? Like, I'm so glad you really like that title. And they're like, no, I really want to, Damian, I want to show you the impact that Revry's had here in India. And she pulls out her phone, and that's hard to see because of the background here. But she turns on her Tinder and she funnels for lesbian, and all of the images on the grid were still images from The Other Love Story, from our original. It's how lesbian queer women identify themselves on the social network, on Tinder specifically in that region, because they don't, for context, they only had their Stonewall moment like 3 years ago. They only just decriminalized being LGBTQ in 2018. So the movement's still very new there. And so, this is how they represent themselves in fear of like discretion for their jobs or their, homes or their families, for acceptance sake. Mm-hmm. So I started to cry. I woke up my 3 co-founders, Aaliyah, LaShawn, and Chris, and told them this story and sent them video and photos of me and this girl. And I took this girl out for dinner. Like afterwards, I was like, I have to buy you dinner now because this is just the coolest. I use it a lot in press, actually, when I get asked this question.
Making me cry. Oh my gosh.
But usually I do cry. But I've told this story now probably 1,000 times, so I've trained myself.
I see water in your eyes, Damian. You're not crying. I'm not crying. You're crying.
It still touches me, but it's going back to your question. Sorry, my very long-winded way of answering your question. Is that that's the thing that inspires me to keep going. This is not an easy job, and I definitely don't get paid as much as I should. And I'm sure Stephanie can attest to this. When you're an entrepreneur, it's never what it should be, but you do it because you love it and you have passion for something. And I think the biggest thing for me is when I hear these stories, that's the thing that fuels me to keep going, and our entire team, because we realize that now what you've built is much more important and much bigger than yourself or what you imagined it to be, because it's helping other people. And at the end of the day, Revry does that on a big or small mission. To me, that's the greatest success I can ever have.
Absolutely. That's amazing to be doing such impactful work. That's why I asked. I said, yeah, I know he's got to have good stories about this. I have
Yeah, of course.
filmmaker friends. Oh, actually, it was my introduction to Revry. My friend Katie Aaron, she has a film called Out of It on Revry. And then another friend of mine did an LGBTQ web series called Gal Pals.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I love that
yeah,
show.
Julia. Do you know Julia?
Absolutely. Yeah. She's
She's
wonderful.
amazing. I loved her series. But um, just the outpouring of love and how many people reached out and said, this, I see myself in this work and I haven't seen it anywhere else. So I would imagine that you've had lots of tearful moments of people
Yeah.
reaching out and saying the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's, and what's I think really unique is, I'm only 1/4 owner. I'm one of 4 co-founders. Aaliyah, LaShawn, and Chris and I represent collectively women, women of color, African American, Latinx. I'm an immigrant, immigrant communities. LaShawn's
Italian.
a veteran, Italian. Yeah, if we want to go real granular, Italian, but veteran. Different, so many different communities, even just as who we are as co-founders.
Mhm.
And I think that's important. One thing I do want to always touch on is that representation starts with leadership. And I think we have the strongest leadership because we have the strongest representation within our leadership, but it was all organic. Chris and Aaliyah went to law school together. So they're both attorneys, 2 different kind of areas of law, and Chris in entertainment and Aaliyah more in the startup small business side. And then LaShawn and I, who had the production backgrounds and were producers and actors and directors. LaShawn actually is a graduate of the American Film Institute. Coming together collectively with all those different backgrounds, we were able to kind of really build something and support each other's efforts to build within their own, departments.
Mhm.
So we've had a lot of support, and it's continuing to grow. We just brought on our newest hires are I don't know, Steph, if you know him, but Paul Katanis.
Oh yeah, I know Paul. He's
Paul's
in New York, right?
He's in New York. He's now our
Right.
CMO. Paul just
Yeah.
came aboard as our new chief marketing officer,
Nice.
the newest addition to our leadership team, and we're very excited to have him. But Paul's, as Steph knows, is kind of an icon in the space as well in digital. But he is an ally. He's straight, and but he knows what it is to be marginalized, and he saw an opportunity with Revry and said, "Look, I want to support something that is helping other people." And that to him, I know is what drives him even forward as our new CMO.
Cool.
That is amazing. So tell us, can you just break down OTT for those who don't know what that is and how it all works?
Yeah, sorry. I know I talk in acronyms.
That's all right.
Chris, my partner, always corrects me on this, and thanks, Steph, for reminding me. So OTT stands for over the top television. So this is basically, your Apple TVs, your Rokus, your Amazon Fires, any type of device that sits on top of your television or next to your TV that connects you to a whole bunch of different app developers like ourselves, or have access to lots of content, whether it's a Hulu app or Disney Plus or Revry. You have an opportunity to access like a ton of content. But now the new version of OTT, the new OTT, is CTV, which stands for Connected TV. Not to be confused with the old acronym CTV, cable TV.
Right.
Now no one does cable anymore. Cable's practically over.
Right.
But CTV, Connected TV, is your Samsung TV smart set or your Vizio smart set, your LG smart set at home that now has the device basically baked into it. So it allows you to connect directly to all of these unique app stores and download the full experience of the app. But they also now aggregate their own version of cable. So like kind of the new wave of Hollywood is, obviously cord cutting and cable nevers, not even cable cutters. Now there's the cable never term. With the younger generations, obviously like Gen Z is very cable never, and millennials or Gen Y is more cable cutters. What's really interesting though that we're seeing is, all of these different smart TV manufacturers and even OTT manufacturers like the Roku channel, which is different. They're different than their actual hardware device, has over 40 million users, and Revry has 2 existing channels there, live channels, and Samsung TV Plus, which is the TV Plus app inside of your Samsung TV that has access to over 100 live TV channels, and Revry is one of them. So now we're seeing bigger audiences kind of adapt to this new world of cable or connected TV, which, we're from a, distribution standpoint and kind of business development standpoint, we're really focused on creating more pathways into these connected TV devices, because essentially, the future of the world is you just buy your television and it has everything on it pre-installed. You just have to connect it to your internet.
Right. And that we have Vizio TVs, and it's frustrating when you have to then flip to your Apple TV or something to find that OTT channel, right, to go to. And, even something as simple as, and not to name another brand, but HBO Max, they don't even have that figured out.
No, they
So,
don't. Like, they don't have an app yet, a native app on Vizio's app store.
right.
Because, you could go to the Apple TV, and Apple TV is made to be an app store, right? Like, that's the whole point of that. Whereas Vizio is made to be a television first. So Vizio has its own unique app store where you can download apps to that your Vizio experience, and they have their own Vizio lineup of live TV channels. So it's it is annoying for the consumer to have to switch over, but this is where it's not HBO, it's actually Vizio who hasn't developed the technology fast enough yet. But it's all in the next 2-3 years. It's just going to be one big blur. Like, you won't need all these devices, or you'll have your preferential device. Personally, I still love Apple TV. Like, I use Apple TV in every room of my house, in every room of our office. I'm used to that system, and it's what I like to interface with. But everyone's going to have their preference, and it's all going to be the same experience everywhere.
Cool. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
For the audience not understanding where everything is, because it is confusing, and every day it's something different, right? So you're constantly have to stay on top of what's what, and where you're going to find your content, and where you're going to put your content as a creator, right? Because you need to know what the audience is, and if you're going to be the right fit for the audience.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. I think a lot of creatives, filmmakers, constantly pitch streaming services or the new networks, not having watched or being a consumer of the actual service that you're pitching first, and understanding the audience and the type of content, like the voice of the network. I always use the example of Vice. Vice is a very distinctive, unique brand of content that when you turn on Vice, what you're going to be watching. And it's a very younger kind of audience, a Gen Z millennial focused audience. Revry is very much similar to Vice in that respect. I'm very proud to say that 55% of our active users are female. We actually over-index women to men, which is a really hard demo to get. And they're not necessarily all queer or lesbian. I always try to preface that there's a lot of ally or straight women who watch Revry and just love the content. And that's what it's really all about. That's what it comes down to. So we're really proud that, we have that audience, but 72% of our users are between the ages of 18 and 45. 72%, that's predominantly our entire audience, right? So if the filmmaker pitches me something that is for a baby boomer generation, there's no offense, my parents are baby boomers, they're not necessarily going to get much success with us, because that's not the audience that watches Revry. And again, not to be ageist, but for filmmakers and creatives, you have to be the consumer of the network first, so you can really kind of get yourself fully engaged and entrenched with the type of content that the network is looking to greenlight.
That's a very good point, because I think a lot of people just think, oh, I'm creating a television series or a movie, not what's the genre, do that extra research. So whenever you're out pitching it, of course, people are going, oh yeah, this is great. But 2, that you're pitching it to the right people and not wasting people's time in trying to, get those meetings, because they're hard to get, first of all. So if you're focusing your content to the right place, you have a better chance of not only getting that deal made, but also getting your content watched.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, at the end of the day, our audience drives our entire business. So we need to know, our job is to be able to have a complete profile of who our audience is. And when we look at like the top performing shows, what was that genre? What was that age group? What was that? What was that? What was that format that worked? And we're format agnostic. We have a lot of short form content and a lot of long form content. We still believe in the power of short form done well, right? Like
Right.
with good production. We have a couple of short films that outperform almost 90% of our features year over year. One in particular called Femme, which is about kind of toxic masculinity within the gay community and about being an effeminate gay man. Every year for the last like 2 years since we released it, we've had it on the platform for 2 years. It's our #1 performing short film, and it has millions of views. And I can't tell you why. It's just great content. It's something that obviously resonates with our audience. And then you've got like The Other Love Story, which kind of came from Bangalore and is, Hindi, lesbian, and English content. And we have a huge audience in Europe for that, and in India, of course. It's there's no kind of rhyme or reason. It's really just being able to, that's the fun part of my job, is I get to experiment with lots of content and see what works and what doesn't. And we're at this tipping point now where we're starting to produce original content and work, with a lot of new and young kind of queer filmmakers who are coming out of the festival circuit or kind of out of obscurity, because we get to create like new and unique stories that for us are surrounding kind of more the BIPOC, the Black, Indigenous, queer voices that have been very underrepresented within not just our community, but I think the entertainment business in general.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What are some of your favorite projects that you've worked on or brought to your network?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned this because my favorite thing I've ever produced, period, is the drag roast of Heclina, which we produced in-house. LaShawn and I actually produced, my co-founder, in-house 3 years ago at the Castro Theater in San Francisco, which is so historic, for our community. God bless Heclina. She's a, legendary drag queen for our community, lives in San Francisco, I think now in Palm Springs. But she had this big, bought up Castro Theater. She was doing an entire drag roast with a lot of great big celebrity drag queens in our space. We're going to roast her. So the whole production was there, minus the capture, like the cameras and the sound, really. So we came in and we produced the entire 2.5 hour special, which today is our #1 comedy special, and we produced it in-house. But we recently released it as with Comedy Dynamics, a partner of ours, as a comedy podcast on iTunes this past weekend. And it's already done some really record-breaking numbers, but I still laugh at every joke, even when I was listening to it this weekend, like the iTunes just podcast version of it. It's like, man, this is like the funniest stuff ever. And we hopefully, once this is all over, we'll be able to go and produce more of those.
Awesome.
And it's available right now. You can watch it on Revry for free anytime.
I want to go watch it. I am
really funny.
Well, I'm learning now. Well, I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, which I think is kind of the foyer into drag culture for a lot of straight. I'm straight, but I'm a woman of color, so your platform is just, it's empowering and exciting to me to see you representing marginalized groups. And so anyway, going back to what I was talking about, RuPaul was like my first foyer into that. And then I watched another series on, on Quibi. There was a Quibi series.
Velour, about
that
one. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was gonna say I totally remember that one, and it's it's funny. It's it's funny you mentioned that one project, because the moment Quibi failed, we were like calling their team and being like, "What are you doing with this one project? We'd love to distribute this."
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that I really loved that little docu-series, because there was so many more elements to drag that I didn't know about, because RuPaul, I mean, is a little more commercial, a little more, network. And I had no idea what the culture was like. And I'm like, I want to go to New York. I want to know these people. I want to go to San Francisco. So anyways, it's all very important stuff. So I'm happy to hear you say that you know about that one, and hopefully we'll see it on Revry. That would be amazing.
Yeah, and there's a great Revry original another drag docu-series, which I encourage you to watch. One of my favorites called, the category is, well, not drag, sorry. One's about ballroom. The category is Mexico City, is about the ballroom scene, which is a very unique form of dance. But then Queens of Kings is our drag docu-series, which follows kind of the underground, kind of gritty look of Bushwick, Brooklyn drag scene. But lots of great content to discover on Revry that aligns with what you're talking about.
So how competitive is it to get content on Reverie, um, especially today? Because I'm sure there's so many people with stories that have been like, oh, finally, I have a home for my story.
I think, it's funny. I've always said that content from our perspective, like from a distribution standpoint, hasn't been as hard. There's when we started, we were the first, right? Now there's a bunch of kind of like copycats that have entered the market, or like smaller services that are mainly subscription based, which I, should mention. We're a hybrid of, you can watch completely for free with no subscription. You just obviously have to watch commercials, or you can subscribe with no commercials. So we're kind of like that hybrid. We've always taken a hybrid approach.
Right.
Where a lot of these other services are subscription only. There's been no competitors yet in the ad video on demand space. But content's been easy. There's been no platform outside of YouTube, which everyone knows has not been the same for quite some time. And there's so many great young queer kind of new, whether it's content creators or influencers or filmmakers, whatever you want to call it, who are creating such great video that doesn't have a home, or they just don't have an opportunity to really monetize at the level that we are. We work with lots of big advertisers now: Lexus, Gilead, Dollar Shave Club, working with Courting Stoli and McDonald's, really big brands, because they see the opportunity and they see the value working with our space, like in our vertical. Their return on their investment to advertise or create content, whether it's underwriting a new young voice, or just buying, commercial airtime on Revry, they see, about a 60 to 70% return on investment, which they wouldn't see on other.
Right.
It's like we've got, really good data that proves the value of our audience being really strong. But content's been easy. And now the big thing is, I think the hard thing is, the one challenge, sorry, long way to answer. I'm always so long-winded. The other long way to answer this question is, now the challenge is getting the underrepresented folks capital to invest in their stories. Because for so long, it's easy for me, a white, again, cisgender gay man, to get funding for my project, or a lot easier for me because of my privilege and where I sit in the world, than it would be for, like you were mentioning, your friend who directed the music video that you did, who's Indigenous and queer. It's almost like, I don't want to say two strikes against them, but like they don't have that access that I do. And so we want to create access for more of those folks, so then we could accelerate the opportunity for those stories to be created, to be filmed, to be shot a lot faster. We will be making an announcement in the next couple of months. We made our first platform acquisition. I can't say who, but it's going to be big news for us, and I think our community, because what we're building now, the next kind of iteration, is a platform that allows us to accelerate that opportunity for more projects to get green light and funding to flow through to filmmakers.
Wow, that is so wonderful to hear, Damian. Just awesome. And it's a natural progression from where you were as, you know, an actor, and then where you've been, right? I mean, you know, web series, and in that, I mean, so, you know, calling you a pioneer, I'm with you on that.
Or an
You know,
OG, whichever you prefer.
the OG.
Yeah, that's all good.
But you know, you're looking at what's working, where do people need help, where can I educate them, where can I bring them up and help them rise up, right? So you are using your white privilege to, you know, to help others. And you know, that's something you hear a lot of people say, oh, it would be great to, you know, have these things get fixed, but here's somebody that's actually doing that, and you're walking that walk. And I'm just so proud to have you as a friend, first of all, but also to be able to talk more about this, because it does have an impact, not only on, you know, your business model, but people's lives. I mean, you're actually, you know, even if you help one person and that person pays it forward to somebody else, it's going to be, you know, amazing. But to be able to recognize a problem and provide a path for others is just, that's even better, because you're talking about it and then somebody else is going to say, wow, I can't just let Damian be the only one doing it. So
Yeah.
I need to help too, right? So, you know, and then having those advertisers that you have for your community, first of all, those are the people that everyone that, you know, cares about who they buy from should be supporting.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have that high of a ROI for those advertisers, those brands, that's, you know, that's also perfect, because they're supporting a community that, you know, other stations, other networks won't, you know, can't carry the content and have the brand match,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And then there you get hear all the noise about, oh, well, they're not, you know, supporting because they didn't like this TV show, blah blah blah, and you're just, you know, okay, well, I'm not buying from you.
Yep.
You've made it easy to know who to buy from.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. It's like, you know, I even in 2019 I leased my first new car, and I leased a
Lexus.
Lexus because I want to support the brand that supports not just my business but also, you know, our community. And it's a badge of honor for me to, you know, right now, actually, it's like Lexus is a great example. Talk about brands to support the community. They are running an ad on a platform that they've created. You know, they create LGBTQ commercials once or twice a year, targeting obviously our audience, which is really great to have a major luxury automotive brand who does that. Not many do, or they'll do it like once every couple of years for Pride season. Lexus has really invested a lot into supporting and uplifting and targeting the community in a positive way, an impactful way. But they have MJ Rodriguez, who is the trans Black actress who's the star of FX's Pose, one of my favorite TV shows ever, who is the spokesmodel for the new LGBTQ campaign for Lexus. And you can, if you go on Revry right now, you'll get, it's the first ad that you're going to see once you start watching something. And it's so good. Like, it's like styled well, the music, the shots, like you're just so like enthralled. She sells that car and those boots, like the shoes, like nobody's business, right? But it goes to show you how like innovative a brand like Lexus is to go that far. And I don't have, you know, I can't quote me on saying this for certain. You'd have to fact check it, but I believe, and I don't know this 100%, but she's the first you know, trans person of color on a major automotive brand. The only other person I can think of that may have done one is Laverne Cox, but again, I don't have the exact stat on that. But look, brands are very engaged with our community. You know, we spend over $965 billion a year in disposable income in the US alone, 4.3 trillion globally. That's the value of the LGBTQ economy. And, you know, we're typically dual income, no kids.
Right.
The acronym DINKS I always use in my advertising pitches. But, you know, what's really unique is, you know, the community is growing by generation. You know, it's like 8% or 10% of Gen X are LGBTQ, 20% of millennials are LGBTQ. 1 in 5 millennials identify as LGBTQ. And then when you go even younger, you go to Gen Z, it's 52% do not declare their gender and do not declare their sexual orientation. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're LGBTQ or that they're male or female, right? It's a comment on, we don't want our sexuality or our gender defined in one of these
Right.
binary roles. And I think, and this is where, I always use this word on which side around queer.
Right.
This is the new community that is kind of being, you could be an ally. You don't need to, you could be heterosexual and an ally, and you could be queer. One of my co-founders, Aaliyah J. Daniels, our COO, she's an ally, but she knows what it is to be marginalized as a woman and a woman of color, right? So this is very impactful for her, creating this network with us. This is the new iteration of our community. The queer community is where, we're seeing, a lot of market trends, but then on top of that, like just consumers and filmmakers who are telling different stories that are not just like the white gay boy coming out story that we've seen so many times over and over again by networks.
You'd think they know how to do it by now.
You'd think so. But they're still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
I just want to hug you. The work that is so important. I went to theater school. I have a musical theater degree and grew up in the theater. And I have so many amazing queer friends, and not to define them by gender or orientation or anything like that, but it's just such an inclusive community. And to finally have a platform where we're seeing these people and represented in an authentic way, and it's not just, as you said, the stereotypical white male coming out story. It's just, I just wish I could give you a hug. I love
when
what you're doing.
the pandemic's all over, for sure, we'll come visit you guys in Albuquerque.
You
Yeah.
definitely need to, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's next for you? Can you talk about any of the projects that you're creating in-house? What do you have?
Yeah. So there's lots. It's never
I get your emails. I know.
Yeah. Last year was a really big, it's really weird because I feel like year over year, it's hard to top the last year's success. And I say that very humbly. Like in 2019, we were named App of the Day by Apple App Store, which is a huge, just to give you context, there's over 1 billion apps in the App Store. There's only 365 days in the year, right? So we're chosen to be one of those 365 days as App of the Day. So that was huge for us, just a huge badge of honor. We, in 2019, had the cover of the LA Times business section. I was named one of the top 16 power players by Business Insider in the ad video streaming space. We had a lot of really big monumental moments for us. And then in 2019, we did again. We launched on so many great platforms. We launched in VR. Revry has a VR channel on the RAD app, R-A-D. If you have a PlayStation, you can download the RAD app and you can go into the Revry room and just hang out and watch TV in VR. And that was really big to be the first LGBTQ VR channel. We streamed a 27-hour live stream of Global Pride. Global Pride's a big organization that kind of is the not-for-profit that connects all of the prides from all around the world. Of course, last year it was virtual, and this year it's going to be virtual again. So we did this 27-hour continuous live stream. Didn't break down. Everything went great. Steph knows the hard work to make that work. Because the internet's not what it was like 10 years ago, right? Like we actually can, it's stable. And that was huge. We did over, 6 million viewers. And then this past fall, I think the greatest honor that we got to have is we have our own festival called QueerX, which is kind of the queer South by Southwest. This year, of course, we went virtual. It's the theme. Made it all online. But we did do an in-person drive-in, and we showed our QueerX Awards, which we had special messages sent to us from Jennifer Lopez and our now sitting president, Joe Biden. Joe actually created a video for Revry 3 weeks before the election. And I encourage you to watch the QueerX live show under our originals. It's super cool and really fun. But I had the honor of introducing Joe Biden last year on our award show as CEO of the network. And I told my story about being an immigrant from Canada who became a citizen 2 years ago, so I can vote in this very election.
Yay! Thank you for that vote.
Yeah, and luckily our guy won, right?
Right.
The right people are on the right side of history again now. But it was important because, not just being, Canadian living in the U.S., but now being a full-fledged dual citizen, I celebrated it. We had a huge, I remember when Biden won, like dinner party with all of our friends, and I had like Biden-themed kind of cupcakes and a placemat and all this sort of stuff because it was exciting. It was very meaningful. But to top those things are really hard. So we're like, what do we do? What do we do? And we also should say one last thing. We ended the year with, we launched the first lesbian queer female focused network, OML, on Revry. And OML stands for One More Lesbian, which is based on a very famous YouTube channel, One More Lesbian, which has over 500,000 subscribers and some of the greatest lesbian content. But it was the first time a queer female or lesbian focused broadcast channel had ever been launched and never been in the history of man, which is crazy to think. Like, it's 2020.
Right.
Why has that never happened before? And we had this huge amount of press. Washington Post wrote about us, the Independent, Deadline, like so many major outlets. And it was and it was kind of funny because it was like different outlets that wrote about us when we had Biden. We had more press coverage on the launch of the One More Lesbian channel than we did on having Biden on our network, which was kind of, but I think it's, again, very monumental in the sense that, like, this is something everyone's wanted for a long time, but no one ever took that step to create, and we have. So this year, Revry is going to come out with some more specialty broadcast channels that focus on different subsectors of our community, and a few in different languages. And they will also be kind of groundbreaking firsts. The team right now is developing and engineering what these channels are going to look like, and these announcements will start to kind of come, obviously, towards Pride Month in June. But it's going to be some big firsts, some world firsts again, that you're going to see coming out of Revry and what we're building here, which is really exciting for me because, again, we're creating change and supporting communities that have had nothing ever exist before. And that, to me, is, I think the most exciting thing that we're very innovative here at Revry in terms of what we build next.
Yes, you are. I vote yes, 2 thumbs up. I love that. Just thinking back to the days of the web TV workshop live streams.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
To today, you have, embraced that live stream, Damian.
We have.
Yeah. And have taken the world really by storm, and giving the content and the respect. And that's the other thing. This is about respect.
Yeah.
To humans. These are human stories. We're all human, and that we all need a place to find stories that speak to us. And that is just, now I'm going to cry. No, but I'm just, whenever I was talking to Jordan about, people to interview, I told her that, I'd reached out to you, and if she was here, she would have been jumping up and down in my office, but she was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? This is so great. So it's, what you're doing is so important, even though it's, it's entertainment. No, it's important. It is very important. I'm just pleased to be talking to you and seeing the success you're having. And all those emails I get every day.
Yeah, thank you for being an email subscriber on our list. But yeah, no, this is, and thank you for recognizing the work. Yeah, this has not been the easiest 5 years of building the business, because that's the hardest, is your first 5 years. But now I think we're now at this inflection point where I think it's, a lot of folks know who we are now and are excited to create content or distribute content on our platform, because they know that we're reaching, a really vast and wide queer audience that is creating impact in, other parts of the world, not just in our own backyards.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Jordan, did you have any final questions for Damian so we can let him get back to his running the world?
Yeah. Do I have anything? Well, I guess, is there anything that you'd like to see moving forward now that we're seeing more inclusion and more diversity? Um, Things are really changing. What do you want to see happen next on the global stage as far as the film industry and television industry goes?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'm going to go back to kind of how I started the whole conversation. It's representation and leadership and ownership. I would like to see more networks and studios hire C-suites, people of color, people of different genders, people of the LGBTQ community, seeing the reflection from the decision makers in terms of who those executives are needs to change. If that doesn't change, then we're not going in the right direction, or we're being tokenized. And I don't want to see that happen. Pride is not just June. Pride runs throughout the year. And if you want to reach that 965 billion disposable income, you can't just advertise in June. You got to advertise, and you've got to be part of the community and creating content for the community 365 days of the year. I think we're starting to see that social change happen from a corporate level, but I'd like to see it accelerate more. And more importantly, I'd like to see capital and the decision around capital, whether it's a startup or just a filmmaker who's looking for funding. I'd like to see those decision makers change as well. Capital still is predominantly controlled by white cisgender straight men. And it's a huge problem in this country, not just in entertainment, in any industry. And we're starting to see that social change, I think, really kind of spin out of the BLM movement from last year. And we're seeing a lot of venture capitalists and angel investors and people who are controlling, that 1% of wealth being distributed to, the next generation of kind of entrepreneurs like myself and my co-founders who represent multiple communities and who are not just one gender, one race, one ethnicity, one orientation. I think it's important that we have as much diversity at the top and in control that we do at the bottom, creating the stories that we want to be told. And just to summarize, that's where we're going to see major change once those people start to get into power, and once the capital and that the dollars shift. That's when we're going to see some monumental changes, I think, just in general with this country.
Definitely. It's sad to say, follow the money, but you definitely have to, know who has it and how to get it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're our hero of the year, Damian, not the day. We're going to go beyond Apple TV. Screw them. You're the App Store. You're the hero of our year for 2021.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
So much for having me. And definitely, go to our website, go to any of the app stores, download Revry, watch, engage. It's all free. We can't iterate that enough. Free queer TV. So it doesn't matter. And for us, this was by design, because whether or not you can afford a subscription doesn't mean that you shouldn't be limited to the access to watching yourself being represented. And that was important for us to create that free version.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Damian.
Thank
you.
We
appreciate it. And we'll be making sure our audience knows how to find you.
Great.
And subscribe for your emails so they're updated. No, I think it's important because a lot of the emails I get from you have important, especially for your content, what you're doing. I mean, how you're moving forward. You don't get a lot of that from, anyone else. You'll just get kind of, watch the trailer for. But to expose people to the type of content that you have, the emails are invaluable because there is a lot to watch. And by you sharing special, things coming up, it makes it easier for me to know where to go for my next fix of entertainment. So thank you very much. And thank you, Jordan, for joining me today. And we will see you on the next In the Room With this time and next time. Thank you very much.